pretty fun, Danna, because you and I have done many of your books together. This is the ninth in your FBI Canine series of novels, and we've never been able to say hi and see each
That's
other's
true.
expressions before.
Not in video. That's true. I'm going
Yeah.
to do a quick correction. This is book number 10.
Oh, yes, nine before the new one. No, we've done nine together. This
Oh,
will be
okay.
the 10th.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, this
So
is
this will be the
the
10th.
10th. Yeah, a little bit prolific you are because not only do you have this series, you also have an NYPD Negotiators series. So to me,
Yes.
that's really interesting because you figure, oh, so Danna must have been an FBI negotiator because otherwise, how could she take that on? And yet you haven't been an FBI canine handler in real life.
No, no,
And
I'm
yet,
a infectious diseases scientist.
which is just wild. It's wild
Yeah.
because you come across as every bit the characters who are in your books. And it's so rich with detail and facts
Oh,
and
thank you.
research, but never dry. Just this is the landscape that she skates in. This new book, Deadly Trade, and you write this series with a pseudonym or a pen name, Sara Driscoll.
Yes.
And I guess
Yes.
that's to differentiate the many hats you wear, including as a
Well, it was
veterinarian.
also because when I started this series, I was writing with Anne Vanderland, my writing partner,
Oh,
who has
that's right. And
unfortunately passed
yeah.
away. So it was the two of us under the one name, and then when she passed it, I took the name over.
So before we go into the fascinating landscape of endangered birds and the stealing of them in deadly trade in Hawaii, because there's so many Hawaiian words in here, I don't even dare pronounce them, but they're fabulous words. Many vowels, so many
Yes,
vowels.
very many vowels.
Wow, the whole nother language, really. What is
Yeah.
it like to go from writing a book that is very plotted and very information heavy, doing it with a partner and going it alone? Did you have a moment of thinking, oh, I can't possibly? We were a team pulling the wagon?
I did. I'd already started the NYPD Negotiators series at that point, so I already knew that I could research and plot and brainstorm characters and everything for a series all by myself. Where I was really feeling insecure was about the dogs because
Yeah,
that was really Anne's forte. She trained standard schnauzers to begin with, and then she got into rescuing pit bulls who have a terrible reputation that is most of the time undeserved because the problem is
sure.
actually the other end of the leash.
Uh-huh.
Um, and she was training them into therapy dogs. So when the whole idea of this series popped up, the one of the editors at Kensington was talking to our agent and said that he was looking for a police procedural with a canine aspect. We knew that was something
Oh,
that we could do because of Anne's expertise. I grew up with dogs, and the and Hawk in this series is a black lab because that was my childhood dog. But Anne really knew the dogs.
yeah.
And so when she passed, that was my where I was feeling most insecure was could I carry this off? But by that point, I was just about to start book number 8, and she had taught me everything that she knew, and that was amazing.
In fact, hanging out with her would be an education, would be a
Yeah,
degree in
yeah,
dog. What's interesting
yeah,
when you say giant schnauzer, I had forgotten that was the breed that she had. They can be
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
fierce. Am I right? Giant schnauzers, or is
It
it
was
black
standard
Russian?
schnauzers.
Oh,
It was standard schnauzers for her, but they're still good sized dogs.
and they can be quite, I think, quite fierce. Certainly, the black
Yeah.
Russian terrier that looks like a giant schnauzer
Mhm.
is a guard dog and not to be approached lightly, if
Yeah.
you
I mean,
will.
Anne's were trained to the nth degree, so they were great dogs. But then when she lost her last dog, she thought she'd make this move over into pit bull rescue, and
Nice.
that's really where she found her place. Like she loved rescuing pit bulls, and Kane was her sort of her heart dog, like Hawk is Meg's heart
Yeah.
dog. And she took Kane, sorry, pardon me, for nose work courses. And they ended up doing trials and he ribboned and all of this sort of stuff. So he was also a therapy dog. So he'd go into AIDS hospices and he was just
Nice.
fantastic.
There are a number of people who are serious dog people who would pick a
Mhm.
pitty over any other breed. They
Yeah.
fall in love with that breed, which is really a crossbreed and it isn't one
Yeah.
characteristic. They're all
Yeah.
different sizes, shapes, colors,
Yep.
temperament, etc. They
Hmm.
never go back. There's
Yeah.
and I used to think my friend Amy Sadler, who does amazing rehabilitation work with Last Chance, mostly pit bulls, but other dogs and was mad for the first pity that she took in and kept. Let dogs letting Dogs Play for Life, or I forget the name of her organization, but it's to get mostly the pit bulls. Most of the shelters are full of pit bulls out into the
Yes.
play
Yep.
yard to play with each other and show
Yep.
people that they can be playful and charming. But I thought maybe people pick pit bulls because they feel sorry for them and sorry for their bad, undeserved reputation or the kind of attitude. But really, no, they just fall in love with the dogs.
Yeah, no, she loved them and could see how much promise they could have. All
Yes.
of her dogs were rescues. One of them was deaf. So she was happy to step in and take dogs that needed a little extra TLC. But then she was really happy to train them up and make sure that they had a real purpose. And yeah,
Yes.
no, she was great when it came to the dog.
It,
So it
it,
was a blow to me to lose her as a friend, but it was also a blow to lose her as the brains behind the dogs in
yeah.
the series. So I thank God that she taught me everything that she knew and I could just keep going.
Well, you're a great sponge because it's not as
Thank
though
you.
you're reading this and thinking, would a dog really do that? Would the person really act like that with the dog? Yeah, they would. The
Yeah.
dogs are so authentic in your books, and there's more than one dog in this book,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
Hawk in particular. So you do you live with a dog now?
I did up to a couple of years ago when my daughter moved out. She got married, moved out, and took the dogs were hers. So she took the dogs
Oh,
with her, but I still see the dogs on a regular basis and they are always welcome here. And when she had her baby, they stayed with us for 4 days. And I have 5 cats and they objected to the long-term staying of the dogs because one of them is a Great Pyrenees mix and he's just a giant 100-pound lovable doofus. But the cats find him a little intimidating just because of his size.
yeah, cute. That
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to a new series that would feature the cats. God, the cat loving people would go crazy for
There's
that.
not a whole lot of law enforcement with cats.
No, no, but infectious disease, who knows? You could have a
True,
cat
true.
character who is somehow helpful in
Yeah,
another part of
right.
your brain that it isn't dormant. I'm sure it's constantly at work, especially with all the
Yeah,
infectious diseases now reappearing and reoccurring in the world. You must be
yes.
tearing your
She's a little
hair out.
scared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is not good,
Well,
people.
there is a cat in the Negotiators novel. The female protagonist does have a cat.
Oh,
So
nice. You know what? You'll have to come back on and we'll discuss that book from the point of view of the cat.
of
Because
the
my
cat,
cat
yeah.
loves listeners who want books, all kinds of good books, but they would love some in particular that feature cats. But the amazing thing about Deadly Trade is the way you put us in that place. So as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, so how long did Jen spend in the mountains of Hawaii?
It was a week.
A week.
I had
Not
never
this
been to
much.
Hawaii. I had never been to Hawaii before. I'd been to Florida and California and to the Bahamas, but I knew any of those tropical locations they would not be good stand-ins for Hawaii because it's such a very specific environment. It was a real spur of the moment. I think we booked it about 3 weeks out before we went. I just said to my husband, "Yep, I've done enough research to know that I have to go there." So
Wow.
the book starts out in Pu'umaka'ala, a natural area reserve, and we hiked that because I just knew that I wouldn't be able to do it justice. And it's really as lush and overwhelming as gets described in the book. There were
Yeah.
times when I was afraid that there was really no path, that we were going to get very lost because we had no idea where we were going. And there was only the occasional little blue flag to say, yep, you haven't gone off the trail yet.
Wow. So when you're doing that, is your mind going a million miles a minute? Or are you talking into your phone or a recording device? You go back to the
Taking
hotel room
pictures.
and
Yeah,
picture.
taking a lot of pictures, making notes as I was going. For the next book that I'm just starting now, Killer Abyss, it all takes place in Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. And I couldn't get to Kentucky, so I did some caving around the Ottawa area up here in central Ontario. And the whole time I had my notepad out and I was just making notes on my
Wow.
phone through the whole thing because I wanted to get the atmosphere and how the caves were made and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, when I'm on a research trip, I'm very much, yeah, I'm in the zone.
Yeah, I
My
believe it.
husband is a great sport. I drag him to on these trips and he
Oh,
just trails
nice.
along and has a good time and drives me from one side of Hawaii to the other side of the Big Island and just the drive that they did over Saddle Road several times. We stayed in that resort that I had the
No
characters
kidding.
staying at, and that drive we did a bunch of times, and it's as dark and as foggy as described.
That's why the book comes so alive. Besides the fact that you have amazing plot, which is not
Thank
at
you.
all predictable, which is of course what makes it a thriller, is whoa, what's going to happen next? But there is this sense of place. So at what point did the endangerment of these birds, these rare birds in Hawaii, at what point did that become the driver of the story? Or did you go in knowing that was what was going to drive it?
Actually, I have a girlfriend who runs a Facebook group, and she sent me an article at some point about a couple of years ago about Kilauea erupting on the Big Island in Hawaii. And I thought, I was just at the end, writing the end of Summit's Edge, and Meg and Todd are just in the process of getting married. And I'm like, they need to go on vacation for their honeymoon somewhere. And Hawaii is FBI jurisdiction. And that was how that whole thing
Oh,
started. She put this sort of bug in my brain about Hawaii, and then I just ran with it and was researching. There's not a whole lot of federal crime that happens on Hawaii, which was where I sort of
good.
ran into trouble.
Good.
But then I started getting into the fact that Hawaii is the extinction capital of the world. They say they have lost more species than the rest of the world combined. So, because they're so remote and like the conditions are can be very extreme. If storms come through there, there's nowhere to hide. And just as the islands have become peopled and environments have been torn down so that populations can build, a lot of these natural habitats are being lost. And so you're ending up with sort of small pockets on individual islands of these birds that are on the verge of extinction. And wildlife trafficking is a real thing. People think of wildlife trafficking as elephants or
Right.
rhinoceroses in Africa, but there's a wildlife traffic in plants and in hardwoods and in lizards and in birds. And so people will pay a huge amount of money for these birds that are on the verge of extinction so they can have one in their collection. And it doesn't matter to them that they are further endangering the species.
Lovely. People are a wonderful species themselves, aren't they?
Yeah,
Just amazing.
absolutely.
What
Yeah.
we're willing to do on our own behalf without any regard for others, although we do have supposedly that right and wrong button that's supposed to get pushed. I
Mhm.
guess what's interesting to me and to you maybe as a multi-cat owner, is there's so much hoo-ha on Hawaii, and I don't know if it's mostly the large island or the other islands. Oh, it's the cats that have gone feral who are the decimators of the wild bird population. And they definitely
Actually,
do have an impact, but not to endanger.
yeah, they're actually not the worst of it. There are cats that are an issue, but it's the mongooses. It's the wild rats. They're a big problem. And a lot of the problem is, and we get into this in the book, that these conservation dogs that work on the island,
Yes,
that was a new dog to me. I'm so familiar with all of the sort of the law enforcement dogs that
yes.
these kind of natural environment dogs were new to me. But one of their main things is that they need to find seabird nests, which these birds basically spent their whole lives out over the water and they only come in to breed. But because lava tubes have these sort of long and convoluted shapes, they get way down deep into the lava plains. But the rats can get in there and a mongoose can get in there, but the humans can't figure out where these nests are. And if they don't know where they are, they can't protect them
And
and these eggs from being eaten. And but these conservation dogs can sniff them out. And then the people in the area, the environmentalists, the conservationists, can make sure that clutch of eggs will go to get to hatch.
it's really wonderful. I have seen photos of the conservation dogs in Africa where they work
Mm,
against poachers with humans. They work as a team with a human, but I had never
mhm.
thought of them being in a tropical place like Hawaii or helping with
Yeah.
something like bird nests. We've picked out a passage, you and I, for you to read that touches on that. So why don't we have you do that and set it up in your typically excellent fashion of how to set up the scene?
So, what essentially has happened up to this point is that Meg is on her honeymoon with her husband Todd, and they spend their first week just sitting in the sand and relaxing. But on the second week, they knew they need to get back to work. Todd's a firefighter, Meg is a handler. Hawk is with them because when you're a dog handler, you don't just go on vacation and put your dog in a kennel for 2 weeks and come back and
Right.
then pick up your job. You take your dog with you. They are your companion. And so Hawk is with them and they're going for a hike and they literally stumble across a bunch of wildlife traffickers. Hawk figures out that there's somebody else there and Meg responds to his
Yeah.
alerts that something is wrong. At a certain point, she knows that something's kind of hinky and she wants to go take a look herself. And in doing so, she runs across these wildlife traffickers. So
And she gets
then
shot at
and she gets shot
and
at
injured because I
on
think,
on her honeymoon.
yeah.
So they end up having a local FBI agent come, an agent from a law enforcement agent from US Fish and Wildlife comes. And so then there ends up this team ends up being built. And Brian and Lacey come from Washington, D.C. And then Clay McCord, Washington Post investigative reporter, comes along to talks his editor into sending him to Hawaii because he is their right-hand man when it comes to research. So this is the first meeting that they're all having together at the FBI office building that's on Honolulu on Oahu. And so they're all sitting down at the table, and then another person and a dog walk in. Now that we're all here, let's get to it, Hale said. Meg, Brian, you might be wondering why we pulled in another dog when we already have two at our disposal. Brian shook his head. Not if Makoa has skills other than a live fine dog. Let me guess. Conservation dog? Kai's surprised grin answered before his verbal confirmation. That's right. What gave us away? It was the specialty that made the most sense. No use for an explosives, decomp, drug, or therapy dog in this situation. Brian looked sideways at Meg. Ever worked with a conservation dog before? No, I've heard of them, but in our line of work, there's never been a need. Up until now. Humor me, McCord interjected. What's a conservation dog? I've never heard of that kind of canine before. Meg motioned with an open palm to Kai to make the explanation. You obviously know a lot about canine work if you've worked with a handler and dog teams before, Kai said. You likely know how dogs are trained on specific scents, only explosives or drugs or human decomposition, and so on. In this case, our dogs are trained on specific scents related to animal and bird conservation. Most specifically, they're trained to scent invasive species. Invasive rats, for example, which destroy fragile ecosystems or consume endangered seabird eggs, further endangering the species. Or our dogs do biosecurity inspections of incoming vessels to make sure there are no rats, yellow crazy ants, or fire ants on board that could transfer to the island. Some dogs can sniff out invasive plants, like devilweed, allowing conservationists to pull the plants and remove them from the environment. Or some dogs detect coconut rhinoceros beetles, 2-inch long hard-shelled beetles with what looks like a rhinoceros horn on their noses. They can burrow into coconut and oil palms, as well as banana trees, sugar cane, and pineapple trees. Once the dog detects an infestation, the tree can be treated before it's too late to be saved. However, Makoa's a bird dog. The majority of his work is finding seabird nests. McCord's fingers flew over the keys as he made notes. They're so invisible they need a dog to find them, Brian asked. A lot of seabirds only spend significant time on land to nest. They build their nests in crevices in the ground and only emerge at night to find food. If we can find those nests, we can protect them from predators who will decimate the nest and kill the parent bird. The predators are all invasive species, so seabirds never evolved to escape them. Cats, rats, mongooses, dogs, goats, they're all predators. We can help those endangered birds by protecting their nesting grounds, but we have to find them first. Kai looked over to where his dog lay next to Lacey. Makoa is a champ.
That is such a great explanation. And it's a great example of how the book is full of lots of natural facts and information that everyone should be interested in. Because the more we know, the more we can support those who are doing things the right way instead of just, let's say, belly aching about unowned cats, feral cat colonies, as if that's the only problem.
Oh, definitely not.
But the other thriller in the book, besides trying to find these guys that shot at Meg, is the volcano.
Yes.
So you had to do a lot of research about that and how the rumble.
I did, because needless to say, the Great Lakes Basin in southern Ontario does not have anything in the way of volcanoes. And I'd never been to an environment that had volcanoes. So that was part of when we traveled down to Hawaii. That was part of one of the things on the list was to go through Volcanoes National Park and to learn all about the volcanoes. And that's Kilauea there, but Mauna Loa is just to the north of it and you can't miss it. And so the eruption that I have written about in the book is not a real eruption, or
Right.
was a real eruption. The Mauna Loa did go 30 odd years before erupting. So I just played fast and loose with that because I wanted it to be at a specific time and a specific location.
Right.
But yeah, how the eruption happened is bang on to how it did happen.
So that's got to be a really cool feeling to be able
Yeah.
to take something that is in modern times, a factual event, and melt, sort of mold it to what you need
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
story.
Just finesse it a bit so that it
Yeah,
fits the book. Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
in reading the book, I thought this is cool for Danna's life. She can go on these cool trips and they're all deductible because it's work. But it's work. You're not there on a second honeymoon yourself. You're just working the whole time, taking notes,
Yeah.
schlepping around, getting lost in the forest,
Yeah.
keeping a happy marriage happy with a husband who was obviously saint-like. It's like you probably need a vacation from these trips.
Yeah, we do come back pretty tired when we do a week-long trip. Also from the Toronto airport, it's a 10-hour flight. So it's a long way to
Ouch.
go. For us, it's not like flying from Los Angeles or something, where it's still a
Right.
good flight, but not quite that long. But yeah, no, those trips are really work. I had a checklist and we made our way through the checklist and Rick made sure that everything got done on the checklist. I think we had 1 day to relax and that was it out of the 7.
But when you're that tired, relaxation is basically crumpling to the ground. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
easy relaxation.
Oh, we
So
were right
it's
on the beach and we were right on the pool, so we were okay.
not too terrible. Where is the next book set?
So the next book is set in at Mammoth Cave National
Oh,
Park
yes,
in
you said
Kentucky.
that. Yes.
Yeah, and which is an interesting location because there's about 400 miles of known cave in that area between the Flint cave
Wow.
system and the Mammoth Cave system. But they think there might be up to 600 miles of undiscovered caves in that area. And that's where we are going to be playing a bit in those 600
What
miles of
fun.
undiscovered caves. Yep, it's a kidnapping case. People are disappearing and only the
Wow.
dog. So we're sending the dog teams into the caves.
Cool. And is Hawk obviously our black lab? He's there.
Yep. Oh yeah, Hawk's there. Lacey will be there. I think the other two dogs will be there too. So we'll have Rocco, the border collie, and Theo, the bloodhound as well. It's going to be, there's kids that are disappearing. Everybody's going to show up.
Wow. So that's one of the things that happens in real life, that search and
Mhm.
rescue teams that are highly trained and have to recertify all the
Yeah.
time, on their own dime, they come to these situations unpaid and with great vigor and enthusiasm.
Yeah. Now, luckily, these guys are paid because they are FBI
Right.
consultants officially. But yeah, when you're talking about normal search and rescue, so
Yes.
Mammoth Cave is a national park, so that makes it federal jurisdiction. But
Ah,
there's all sorts of things where just from Summit's Edge, where people just, people get lost on the mountains in Colorado. They have local search and rescue teams that just drop what they're doing and
yeah.
go out. And some of them have dogs and some of them are mountaineers. And so these people who voluntarily give their time and their talents and share their dogs' talents with the community, they're amazing.
They are amazing, and they themselves are a larger community. A lot of them know
Yeah,
each
for
other.
sure.
And in some of your books, if I remember well, there's a little bit of one-upsmanship. Whose dog does a better job? I can't remember precisely, but I have this feeling that there can be rivalries, which I
There
wouldn't know.
was in Still Waters, there was actually
Yes,
a competition, but that
that's
was
right.
they were doing a competition while they were out doing their sort of
Right.
education certification in learning water decomp training.
I
They were
remember
having an actual handler competition, and yeah, things got a
there
little
was one
competitive.
guy, if I recall, who either he peed on something or his dog
Yep.
did, throw the
Yep.
other.
The minute
See, I
you do that in
remember
a
your book.
competition, the competition is over for you.
That's right, because
Yep.
your dog can't do a good enough job. This book is wonderful. Danna, writing as Sara Driscoll, Deadly Trade. I'm assuming that the finished copy is as beautiful a cover as this.
I haven't actually seen it yet. I know it's in the mail. I expect to see
My
it
my
sometime this
kind of
week.
colors. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
You've done an
Kensington
amazing
always does a
job.
great job on the covers.
They do. And you do an amazing job bringing the human animal bond to life in a really unique and powerful way. And let us
Thank you.
all go along with you without us having to actually make the 10-hour flight or drive across
And
Hawaii.
and the hike into the fern forest and nearly get lost.
All that.
All
It's so
that.
nice to be able for us to be armchair and you get to be out there. So thank you so much, Jen. The book is
Thank you for
Deadly
having
Trade,
me.
an FBI canine novel, yet another, the 10th. So if you get this one, I think you're going to be intrigued to go back and read some of the others. I'm amazed myself with all the books I read and all the people I interview. I remember specifics from your books. That's how good
That's
they are.
amazing
So
because I know how much you read.
I do, and I don't think I remember the plot. I have to watch The Diplomat again before I see the new season because I don't remember. I vaguely remember the first season, which I adored, and yet your books stick with me. So
Oh, well, thank you.
very
That's a
much
high
well done
compliment.
and well deserved. So I look forward to the next book, and I look forward to everyone getting Deadly Trade. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.